All right, good afternoon, boys and girls. We are doing lesson 67, writing tenths, hundredths as decimal numbers. So, our objective for today, we have three different objectives, is to write fractions with the denominators of 10 and 100 as a decimal number. Um, that's supposed to say write fractions, mixed numbers, and decimal numbers to describe shaded and unshaded parts. And we're going to use tenths and hundredths grid to compare decimal numbers. So, your vocabulary for today is common fraction. It's just a fraction with whole number terms. Okay, so there are fractions that look like this, with whole numbers as their terms for each of the numerators and the denominators. All right, it doesn't look like this. Okay, this is something you'll see later on as you go into your math career. All right, so your joke of the day is, how did the student get the answer to 10 minus 10? And he zeroed in on it. Your new concept for today is that um, when we look at common fractions like 1 over 10 or 1/10, we can see that the denominator, all right, can be written like this, right, as a decimal. Okay, the numerator of a common fraction is written in the tenths place of the decimal. So remember, if we remember our place value, this is going to be the tenth spot. The next one after that would be the hundredth spot. All right, so the common fraction 1/10 and the decimal 0.1 are both named 1/10. So when we actually say 0.1, we're actually saying 1/10. Um, the 0 to the left of the decimal point shows the whole number part, so is 0. So the whole number, remember the term whole number is just anything above 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Those are whole numbers, right? They're not cut in half, and those are all the numbers to the left of the decimal point. Now, all the numbers to the right are not, okay? Those are going to be our fractions of a number, okay? And that's where this is the tenth spot. So if there's a 1 here, it's 1/10. So let's look at example number 1. So we're gonna write 3/10 as a common fraction. All right, then we're gonna write that as a decimal number. Okay, remember, if it says tenths, it's a 10 on the bottom. Pretty darn simple. All right, and as a decimal, if the tenth spot, it's the first one to the right of the decimal. So this is what it looks like, 3/10, and we have the same digit, and the digit is in the tenths place, therefore we put a 10 here. All right. Example number 2, a portion of the square is shaded, and we're going to name the shaded portion as a fraction and as a decimal number. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this square box, and we're going to count up the number, right? And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is going to be out of 10, right? That's our fraction, and our shaded portion is 4 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our fraction is 4 over 10, which is also known as 4/10. All right, and therefore our decimal would be 0.4 because the 4 is in the tenth spot. Remember, you do need the decimal at this point. Now we're going to look at the same number in example number, or we're going to look at a number in example number 3 with a whole number and a fraction, and we're going to use this also as a decimal point. Okay, so now we have one whole circle that's totally shaded, and then we have one part of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this circle is divided up into 10, so that's going to be our denominator, and 1 is shaded, which will be our numerator. So this is 1 and 1/10. Okay, and this is how we write that as a fraction, 1 and 1/10. Now, whenever we use the word and in a number, our and is our decimal. Okay, so our decimal goes like this: 1 and with the decimal, and then 1/10 in the tenth spot. Okay, remember that. And is our decimal point. Like when we say we have $2.50, it's $2 decimal point, which is our and 50 cents. Okay. Example number 4, we're going to write 12 hundredths as a common fraction and as a decimal. So 12 hundredths So remember the space after um, to to the right. So after the decimal point, you go 2 places to the right. That's our hundredth spot. Okay, and so we write that with a as a fraction as 100 on the bottom. So if we have 12 hundredths, it's gonna look like this: 12 over 100. Pretty darn simple. All right. Now, as a decimal, what you're gonna do is you end where you were what you're saying. So if it's the hundredth spot, the 12 will be at the hundredth spot. The 2 of the 12 will be in the hundredth spot. Okay, and then the 1 will be in the 10th spot. Just like if we had 1 10 and 2, like 1 dime and 2 pennies. Okay, and that's what it looks like. 12 hundredths. We still have 12 cents, which is 12 hundredths of a dollar. Okay, just remember that this spot is the hundredth spot, and if you end in hundredths, that's where you're going to end right here. Okay. And then we're going to write 4 and 300ths as a decimal. For example, number 5. So remember, 4 is the whole number, so that goes on the left side of the decimal. And then the hundredth spot, we have a 3 in the hundredth spot. So that means there's nothing in the 10th spot. So what's going to happen is that we have 4 and 0 tenths and 300ths. All right, and that's how you would write it here. Now in example number 6, we're going to name the shaded portion of the square as a common fraction and as a decimal number. And in order to do this, I'm just going to tell you an easy way to count. So you don't have to count each individual square. You could times this, and you'll get all of the squares, which is, this is going to be a hundredth square, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to count how many we actually have in this hundredth square, and each row is worth 10. So we have 1, 2, 3 rows that are totally full. So that's going to be 30 plus 3 more, 1, 2, 3. So we have 33 out of 100 of our squares. So what our fraction is going to be is 33 over 100, which is, this is it. And how we say that is 33 hundredths. Remember, the hundredth spot, the last 3 goes in the hundredth spot. And so we have 33 and then hundredths, okay? Here's our lesson practice for today. We're going to name the shaded portion of this rectangle as a fraction and as a decimal number. So I want both fraction and decimal number for letter A. Then you do the unshaded portion of this for letter B, both as a fraction and a decimal. For letter C, we're going to do mixed numbers. Letter D, we're going to, instead of tenths, we're going to use hundredths because this is a hundredth square. All right, and you just got to count up how many you have, and then do the shaded portion and unshaded portion as fractions and decimals. And then we're going to write each fraction as or a mixed number as a decimal number. Remember, if you have a whole number like an H and I, whole numbers go to the left of the decimal, and then this will go on the right. The fraction goes on the right of the decimal. All right? And then you're going to convert all these into fractions on the bottom, or mixed numbers. Okay, if you have any questions, which I'm sure you will, make sure you write those questions on the back and do your 3 takeaways for today. Have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.